In this part of episode 7, we're going to be talking about how to do calculations involving fractions that have negative numbers involved. And we're going to be talking about how to simplify fractions containing negative numbers. And we're going to be talking about how to multiply and divide fractions containing negative numbers. And we're going to be talking about how to add and subtract fractions containing negative numbers. Now, fortunately for us, we don't actually have anything new to learn in this part of the episode because everything that we are going to be doing in this part of the episode is going to be a combination of the processes we've already learned how to use when we're learning how to do calculations involving regular fractions and when we were learning how to do calculations involving negative numbers. So, for example, if someone asked me to simplify a fraction, and the fraction contains some negative numbers, for example here, negative 2 divided by negative 6, negative 2 over negative 6. To simplify a fraction, the process is exactly the same as it was when we were simplifying positive fractions. Your goal is to divide out numbers from the numerator and the denominator. Divide as much as you can out of the numerator and the denominator. Now, for example, here, if I look at the number negative 2 and I look at the number negative 6, can I think of a number that divides these both evenly? Well, if I divide, for example, both the numerator and the denominator by another copy of negative 2, if I have negative 2 divided by itself, the result of that is definitely going to be 1, because any number divided by itself becomes 1. Now, if I have negative 6 divided by negative 2, a negative number divided by another negative number, I have an even number of minus signs in that calculation, so the result of that is going to be positive. And 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So at the bottom of this fraction, I'm going to have 1 divided by positive 3, 1/3 from the simplification here. For another example, someone says, simplify negative 3 in the numerator and 12 in the denominator. This might represent I owe somebody 3 slices of pizza, right? Because I have a negative number, I have a debt here. I owe somebody some pizza. Now, if I were going to simplify this quantity, once again, I could look for a number that evenly divides both the minus 3 and the 12 in this fraction. And I think, for example, 3 goes into both these numbers evenly. 12 divided by 3 in the bottom is just 4. And negative 3 divided by 3, because I have an odd number of minus signs in that calculation, the result is going to be negative. And then 3 divided by 3 would be 1. So I have in total negative 1 in the numerator. Negative 1 divided by 4 would be the result of this simplification. Now, when we are simplifying fractions, we typically try to make sure that the denominator ends up as a positive value. So in a situation like what is in part C, 18 over negative 4, I'm going to see if I can divide the numerator and the denominator by something that will leave the denominator as positive in the end. And I think that the number 2 goes evenly into both 18 and 4. But because it is tradition to make the denominator positive in the end, I'm going to divide by negative 2 so that these two minus signs here, when I divide them, will give me a positive result in the end. Now in the numerator, if I take 18 and divide it by negative 2, then in that calculation in the numerator, I have an odd number of minus signs. So the result of that calculation will be negative. And then I have 18 divided by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So I have negative 9 over 2. I owe somebody a lot of pizza in this situation. If we are asked to do multiplication and division involving fractions that have negative numbers, then you might see something like this: negative 2 over 5 times negative 3 over 4. And again, we don't have to learn anything new to complete this calculation. To multiply two fractions together, we remember that all that we have to do is multiply their two numerators and multiply their two denominators. And now, to complete the calculation in the numerator, I have a product involving 1, 2, an even number of minus signs. Minus 2 times minus 3 gives me in total positive 6, it looks like, in that numerator. And then in the denominator, 5 times 4 would be 20. And so let's see if we can simplify this. If I can divide anything out of both the top and the bottom, and it looks like I can. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 20 10 times. So overall, I'm left with 3 over 10 as the result of this product of two negative fractions. And for another example, if someone says 1 over minus 2 times 3 over 4, once again, all I have to do to multiply two fractions is multiply the two numerators and the two denominators. So in this situation, 1 times negative 3 would give me a negative 3 in the numerator. Negative 2 times 4 would give me a negative 8 in the denominator. And remember when I said that it's traditional to try and write your answers so that the denominators were positive? That's what I'm going to do here. This answer is correct, but to simplify it a little bit further, I think I'm going to go in and divide both the numerator and the denominator by a minus 1. There's no larger number than 1 that goes into 3 and 8. 1 is as big as it's going to get. But by dividing by minus 1, I will be able to change the signs of both of these numbers from negative to positive to give me in the end a positive denominator, which is usually traditional in terms of a final answer. Addition and subtraction of fractions involving negative numbers. Once again, we don't have to learn anything new to complete this process. If someone says, for example, I have negative 2/5 and I'm combining that with positive 3/5, because the slices that I have here and the slices that I owe somebody here are already the same size. All I have to do is combine the two numerators and ask myself, what is negative 2 plus 3? Well, if I have 3 and then I'm adding negative 2, I'll be left with positive 1 as a result of that. And putting positive 1 over that common denominator, I have 1/5. Now, if I were going to represent this situation in a picture, in the back I have 3 slices of size 1/5, and in the front I owe somebody 2 slices of size 1/5. So I pay my debt with 2 of the 3 slices that I have, and what I have left is just 1 of the slices in the end. 1/5 is what is left from combining these two fractions. And if, for example, I had 2 minus 8 over 3, if I wanted to do this subtraction of these two fractions, I would start by acknowledging, okay, these fractions don't have the same denominator. So these quantities are not of the exact same size. The pieces are not of the same size. So I need to make sure that my pieces are of the same size before I begin adding and subtracting them. So to make my pieces the same size and to give both fractions the same denominator, then in this situation, I would end up with 6 over 3, and I'm trying to remove 8 over 3. Well, I don't have 8 pieces to begin with. I only have 6 pieces to begin with. So if I do 6 over 3 and I want to remove 8, I'm going to be left with a debt. I'm going to owe somebody. I'm going to have a negative answer, negative 2 over 3. So that debt there of I still owe you 2 slices, would be negative 2 over 3 would be the result of this subtraction. Now, what about a really complicated looking problem? Someone says, I'm thinking about taking 3/4 and subtracting negative 1/2. Now, right now, these two fractions don't have the same denominator. So if I want to subtract these two fractions, the first thing that I would have to do is make sure that they had the same denominator. So I have negative 3/4, and I'm subtracting from that negative 2 over 4. Now that these quantities have the same denominator, all that we have to do is subtract their numerators. So I have 3/4 negative, and then I'm subtracting negative 2. So I have a debt of 3 units, and then someone is coming off to remove 2 units of debt. And if I have 3 units of debt and someone removes 2 units of debt, then I will be left with 1 unit of debt. So the result of this calculation would be negative 1 for that negative 1 unit of debt in the numerator all over the common denominator of 4.